Amarawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. We start today in Southern California, where a newly proposed monument would protect sacred lands if it is approved. Both elected officials and tribal leaders are calling on President Joe Biden to designate Chuckwalla as a national monument to protect lands adjacent to Joshua Tree National Park. Last week, Representative Raul Ruiz, a Democrat from California, introduced the legislation called the Chuckwalla National Monument Establishment and the Joshua Tree National Park Expansion Act of 2023. If passed into law, it would protect over 660,000 acres of land, making it the largest protected area of the Colorado Desert bioregion. The proposal would include the homelands of several tribes, including the Cahuilla, Chemehuevi, Mojave, Quechuan, and Serrano nations. Federal officials added that making Chuckwalla a national monument would help the state meet its goal to protect 30% of public lands and coastal waters by 2030. So far, the effort has gained local support, including from tribal leaders. In the Pacific Northwest, women who are incarcerated are fresh off an experience to reconnect with their culture. The Washington Corrections Center for Women recently hosted its Sisterhood Powwow to remind them that they are not forgotten. Nearly 100 friends, family, and staff members gathered to share culture and fellowship. A representative from Unctikawa, an indigenous nonprofit that organized the event, spoke before the crowd. Jeremy Garrettson, who is Northern Arapaho, added that too often women who are imprisoned are an afterthought. Unctikawa provided supplies and lessons for women to make beaded earrings, leather drums, and dream catchers to give to loved ones in attendance. They also organized a competition powwow, bringing in dancers from outside the prison walls. Many of the incarcerated attendees said the event was a much-needed spiritual experience. We head now internationally, where the mental health among Indigenous Australians and Torres Strait Islanders are a growing concern. Indigenous Australians are experiencing what's being called a suicide crisis. According to new reports, there's an increasing number of people who know at least one or two people who have taken their own life. The government's Mental Health Commission, which funds suicide prevention, does not have the resources needed to combat the problem. Megan Crower, who is Menig from the southern part of the country, was recently awarded the 2023 Australian Mental Health Prize for her decades of work spotlighting the suicide issue among Indigenous people. In a statement, she said a call to action is required to reverse the trend. 80% of Australian Indigenous child suicides occur among those aged 12 and younger, according to reports. The primary factors for this crisis include poverty, discrimination, and barriers to education. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. In Idaho, citizens of the Shoshone-Bannock Nation came together recently to plant seeds. This is part of an effort for future generations to carry on traditional harvesting while understanding the ties native languages have to the land. Rilza Nyazi has the story.
Beneath the cloudy blue sky, nestled in the sagebrush, Shoshone-Bannock families searched for the best spot to pick pinyon pines. For time immemorial, the native people have foraged in the area, now known as the City of Rocks National Reserve in Idaho. The harvesting of pine nuts is typically done in the late summer into autumn. This year, the nation's Language and Culture Preservation Program is working with the Bureau of Land Management. The partnership is part of the Seeds of Success Project, a national native seed collection program. Nolan Brown, Original Territories Historical Research Manager, explains the purpose of the event and why they're working to preserve pinyon pines.
To bring out our tribal members and gather in a traditional manner, and also the second purpose was we collaborated with the BLM state office. Our tribal liaison Susan Filkins arranged for us to contribute to seed banking project, so that we'll always have pinyon seeds in case of a catastrophe, be it fire or because of climate change. There's a mold called black stain mold that is killing the pinyon pines around here. And so we wanted to bank those seeds in case anything should ever happen. And also there was a third purpose to this trip, is we wanted to collect seeds that we could bring home to Fort Hall, and with our land use and language and culture and tribal member Sydney Fellows, we created a project to plant some pinyon pines, and we've selected a few areas on the reservation to do that.
One of the many goals of the preservation program includes adding the Shoshone and Bannock languages into more events. Shoban citizen Bailey Dan, who is an original territory's historical researcher, has committed herself to the study and teaching of her language. Put together by language instructors, Dan taught some phrases to use while gathering. To get a better understanding of her language, Bailey works with elders, who she calls the ultimate masters. And though she's still learning herself, the language worker is always willing to share what she knows.
And we're out here today in this beautiful land of out collecting pine nuts. And currently the pine nut season is either over, we either missed it, or it needs a little bit more time. But we're out here, and I think the most important part, even if we don't have a successful harvest, is being able to be in the land and use our language and connect with the land, because the land recognizes us and our ancestors recognize us. And so when we're here in these beautiful areas, it's really important for our people to be here and to assert our presence, but then also to use the language as much as possible. And so earlier this afternoon, I gave a Shoshone language lesson that our language instructors with LCPD put together. And so that was really nice. And it was really great to see a lot of youth here, so they can, just be around the language and learn their traditions, such as pine nut gathering, which is something that we can lose if we don't continue to do it every year. So I think that's really important. So Devat is pine nut, and when we're collecting our Devat, it's good to Zashuangan, to have good thoughts when we're collecting it. And so that's really important, and to pray Nani Shundahai Daman Devat Desensogo Nani Shundahai. We need to have that good thoughts, those good thoughts when we're collecting, and because there's a reciprocity between the things that we gather and ourselves and our spirits, and so and their spirits. And so when we come together and we meet, it's good to have those. We need to have those good thoughts, so that they can recognize us, and so that we can harvest in a good way, so that they will come back.